Hey guys, sorry if my nose sounds stuffy or my if I'm coughing a lot. My children infected me with their cold, so I thought I was going to get away with not getting it, but as they're starting to feel better, me and my wife are starting to feel a little bit sniffly. So look at this. I watched this video, Nutrition Basics for Vegans, and vegan dietitian Dr. Pamela R.D. This is not a criticism against this YouTube channel or against the lady with the PhD, Pamela. I think that it's a good thing that this vegan channel is honest enough to say that if you do wish to go vegan, that you'll need supplementation. I use this video because I find it so ironic that a whole food plant-based diet needs supplementation. Doesn't that make it a non-whole food? So that's where you see the big lie, that propaganda machine that just keeps on repeating, healthy greens, healthy whole grains. And just by repeating over and over, it becomes true to the mass public. However, just very easy investigations into the nutrient content of animal foods as opposed to plant foods shows a drastic, difference between the quality food in animal sources of nutrition and plants. All right, so they're going to go through the nutrition basics for vegans. Now, I didn't realize this was going to be basically all supplements. I wanted to see, I was like, okay, nutrition basics for vegans. I know all the flaws that are in veganism. I know that the ALA, the so-called plant omega-3 is poorly converted into the active form of DHA and EPA. I believe that DHA is 3.8% converted from the omega-3 from plants. And I believe EPA is, I think it's 6% and DHA is 3.8%. And that's if you're consuming a high saturated fat diet, which will never happen with vegans, as well as 50% worse if you have a high omega-6 ratio. Now, basically what I'm saying is a plant-based diet has no good sources of omega-3. It's all sources of omega-6. So how the heck is that natural? Why should this deficiency be pushed onto us in the future with this messed up agenda of looking at ways to affect, psychologically make us eat less meat, analyzing our behavior when we're eating meat, as opposed to the soy boys that are trying to get their protein through soy, which is high in phytoestrogens. So, let's listen to the video first. And then we can stop. The whole point that I'm trying to make with this video, not a criticism on this channel, not a criticism on the two ladies up on the screen. It's a criticism of veganism itself. When I keep on hearing whole food, when I have done the research and I understand that you could literally survive off of just one of the animal sources of nutrition. You could live off just the seafood. You could live off just a cow or any ruminant animal, because they have everything that you need. They have all the essential amino acids. It's a complete protein that's bioavailable. It has all the fats that you need, not just saturated fat, but the omega-6s, the omega-3s. They have the monounsaturated fat. They have fats that we haven't even heard about that all have beneficial, very beneficial and essential functions in our body. We need to get it. So animal sources of nutrition supply everything, plus things that you'll never get in plants, like an absorbable form of vitamin A. There's no form of K2 unless you're eating fermented soybean, natto, which is gross. There is Look, let's just start the video and we can stop and comment. Again, this is a criticism about me being tired. 1 second, guys. Me being tired of hearing this whole food, how we should be swapping protein when the darn protein is incomplete, when this diet is deficient. But if you go animal-based, you literally don't need any supplementation, as well as you realize that every single nutrient, every single fat, every single protein, and other nutrients and other stuff like carnitine and creatine and taurine, all these things are found in only animal foods. Yet they're pushing towards a future that is literally devoid of animal nutrition. It's a green future with basically a vegan aspiration for us down the road. Let's listen to this whole food plant-based diet and the nutrition basics for going vegan. I was shocked. The whole thing's just a supplement.
Hello everyone, my name is Lisa and I'm the vegan because I'm vegan. And today I'm joined by Dr. Pamela Ferguson. I'm a registered dietitian and I have a PhD in nutrition. She's super qualified. So today we've teamed up with DVA to show you guys just kind of the lowdown on supplementation, especially if you're a beginner vegan or you're like a baby vegan, you just want to see what you need to have your bases covered. So today we're talking about B12, D3, omega-3s, zinc, and iron. So take it away.
The number one thing that you need to get on board with when you're becoming vegan is taking your B12. If you only take one supplement, that's the one to take because there are no whole food sources of B12. We need to look to
So there's no whole food sources of B12. If within the whole food there's no B12, by definition, you shouldn't be calling it whole because it's incomplete. At best, call the frickin' shit food.
fortified foods or supplements. Foods that are fortified with B12 include nutrients.
Here we go. The fortification of our future food. If you look at Bill Gates and all those wonderful philanthropists going to Africa to feed the third world nations. No, they're not teaching them how to do animal husbandry. They're not teaching them how to replenish the soil. What they're doing is they're selling these poor countries fortified flours, fortified food from Tyson and from big companies that Bill Gates is going to make billions off of. All right, he's not supplying these people farming practices so that they can have nutrient-dense animal nutrition, a well-balanced agricultural system within that country. Yes, with some plants, with some plant agriculture. No, you wouldn't want to do that, right? So this plant-based future where you're going to hear people trying to tell you to replace meat with this soya pea protein soylent slop, all right? You're going to hear them tell you that this is good. Yet, as you can see, everything's fortified. You're dependent on supplements and you're dependent on fortified foods. And these foods are fortified. What do you mean when you say fortified? It means that it has to be added like an ingredient. So they add these ingredients because, they're basically devoid of any nutrients, and then they call them whole food. They call them things that you should eat instead of animal sources of nutrition. It's freaking delusional. Continue.
Nutritional yeast, it's cheesy, it's yummy. There's no actual cheese in it.
You know what's cheesy? Cheese. Eat it.
Most nutritional yeast is fortified with B12. And actually, plant-based
Cool. More whole food fortified. Devoid of nutrition. But it's whole food, don't forget, okay, guys?
milks are fortified as well with B12. Just make sure, look on the label and make sure that you've bought a fortified product. This one, for example, is fortified and 1 cup.
More whole food fortification. Good. Yeah. Don't drink milk, guys. Drink almond milk. I feel bad though because it's extremely difficult to find out which almonds are males and females. It's a learned skill. So the whole almond milk situation, the whole production is very, very inefficient. The farmer has to find out which almond has milk is a female, which ones are male, and the milking process is very delicate. Okay. I hope people are not buying this shit.
Of this fortified soy milk contains 50% of your daily requirement of B12.
And this is not a
How about like any animal food? You don't even have to like calculate it. If you're eating animals, you're getting B12. It's a water-soluble vitamin that's essential. Vegans are desperately trying to absorb this B12. It's not as simple as just taking a B12 supplement. Go check out Vegan Gains. The guy's like freaking shooting with needles B12. Yet this is what we're being told is a whole food freaking diet.
drink, but this is vegan sausages by Gusta. One sausage has 97% of your B12.
Amazing. But please don't rely just on fortified products for your B12. Do take a supplement, because unless you're very consistent with those fortified products, it's easy to start missing out on B12. So a supplement will just keep your bases covered. B12 is a nutrient that there's no safe upper limit for. You won't cause any health issues. So go ahead and take your B12, and you won't put yourself at risk by taking too much.
Yeah, because basically it's water soluble. Anything that you take that is like that your body doesn't need, you'll just pass anyway. So B12.
Yeah, you know, like the stuff that you pass, like most of the food in a vegan diet, you know, all the stuff that just comes out your butt 4, 5, 6 times a day while you're farting all the time.
Now let's talk about D3. What is D3?
So vitamin D, not just D3, there's
Spoiler alert, okay? D3 can't be attained in plant foods, only D2. And don't let people convince you that D2 can be converted to meet your D3 needs, all right? How about like 2 eggs? 2 eggs, your D3 is done, okay? I'm not gonna go through all the other sources of animal nutrition. I'm talking about like they're having trouble with their whole food, plant-based, vegan diet to get vitamin D, and I can do it with 2 eggs. But we're being told not to eat eggs because it's going to kill us.
D2 and D3, and we do need vitamin D. We call it the sunshine vitamin. In the summertime, we can get it by going outside, and 20 minutes.
Okay, side note. Most people don't get D3 anymore when they go outside because they're scared of the sun, because they tell us if we don't cover ourselves with cream that we're going to die of cancer. Meanwhile, the reason that people are burning and getting cancer of the skin is because of the high oxidized and omega-6 ratios of fat that they're building their bodies with. We know that these frickin' seed oils, aka marketing vegetable oils, are highly oxidized, toxic, completely unnatural. We never got it from these frickin' fields of seeds. We got the omega-6 and 3 ratios through animal sources of nutrition. That's why we're getting so frickin' sick, guys. All right?
Minutes of exposed skin in the sun without sunscreen will give you plenty of vitamin D. But in the Canadian winters, or if you're working indoors in an office and you can't get out in the sun, then you should consider a supplement.
Okay, so I do live in Canada, and I keep on using this as an example. I'm like, what would we be eating hundreds of years ago, or before transportation took off? What would we be eating during the winter seasons? And we would be eating a carnivorous diet. Maybe we, got some plants in mason jars or whatever. But primarily, we were dependent on the animal sources of nutrition. This is before we were able to be vegans. This is before we were able to import and export nuts from all across the world. Where in Quebec, in the middle of winter, I can go to my grocery store and get mangoes and, coconuts. This is completely unnatural and foreign, all right? So all of this nutrition basics for vegans, the solution is to get something that's fortified or get some kind of supplement. These are all companies, all right? And the companies that are freaking making these things, a lot of them are the companies that are also making animal products. So I don't understand how they're fine with buying vegan products from companies that also make things that they're, basically morally against. So I've noticed, and you can look it up, we're talking about anecdotal evidence, but you can look it up and you can see that a lot of people, once they went on a ketogenic diet, especially if you're going much higher on your salmon roe, your sardines, your omega-3 eggs, good quality eggs, all those fatty fishes, cod liver, guys. All right, we gotta have cod liver like we used to. Okay, vitamin E, boom, just like that's covered. Not to mention you can get vitamin E again in a couple of eggs. So what I just want to talk about this here is that because I do a ketogenic carnivore diet, I'm able to go out during the summer and just not burn. I don't wear sunscreen. I don't burn anymore, and I get darker. I'm able to absorb the D3 all throughout the year. All throughout the summer here in Quebec, and then I'm chomping down, animal sources of nutrition that have plenty of D3. As she's going to mention, there's no D3 sources in whole food plant-based diet.
That is not just for vegans, that's actually for the general population. Around 40% of Canadians are vitamin D deficient in the wintertime. So if you're looking again, we are going to go back to our fortified milk. 1 cup of this has 45% of your daily requirement of vitamin D, which is fantastic. But you might also want to consider a supplement.
This is a multivitamin, and in this there is 12.5 micrograms of vitamin D3.
Great.
So also, just so you know, not all vitamin Ds are vegan. Most commercial vitamin D3s or vitamin Ds are wool derived. So they're derived from wool skin glands. Make sure that you get a vegan one. There are lots of vitamin.
So you're resorting to a synthetic D3 like most of the vitamins in these vegan supplements? In case I forget, by the way, she's not going to talk about vitamin K2. Extremely important. Okay, this is nutrition basics for vegans, right? Well, it seems to me that it's quite important to let the future vegan know that there's really no sources of K2, an important fat-soluble vitamin that obviously needs to be consumed with fat. It helps direct, among other things, where calcium is to go, telling calcium, hey, go to the teeth and bones and not to oxidize my arteries. So there again is possibly a conversion rate of vitamin K1 to K2, but again, that is we're not sure how much. It might vary greatly between people and dependent on your gut microbiome, your gut health, if you have leaky gut, if you're older and your absorption isn't as good.
D3s that are vegan source are a lichen base. Be sure to check out for that. But if you see like most things like tender flake, like pie crust or cereal, those are animal derived. Yes.
So if they should be talking about nutrition basics, they should tell all vegans, if you want to go vegan, please consume natto. It's soybean with full of those phytoestrogens that mimic estrogen in men and cause basically the soyification of men, the soy boy nation.
But don't neglect vitamin D2 and think that it's just doing you no good. Foods that are fortified with...
I had to blow my nose. So the vitamin K2, they should let vegans know, look, it's an important source. We don't get it in plant products. We only get K1. Yes, animal products give K1 as well as K2. Most of the great sources of K2 is fat, guys. Like duck fat is an amazing source. Eggs have it. So, K2 is found all throughout animals. I think goose liver is really high in it too. The problem is that they're not even measuring for it. And, just as a side note, there is vitamin C in animal foods, even, fresh steak. And we don't need high amounts of vitamin C, and we can talk about that later. Let's get back to the video. The point is, they don't mention about K2, and that's a serious deficiency that they missed.
Vitamin D2 are also beneficial to you.
Yeah. So next we're talking about omega-3s.
We need to have our omega-3s. We can get omega-3s from plant-based sources. For example, flaxseed is a great source. Walnuts are a great source. All the seeds actually are good sources of omegas, but what we're getting there is ALA. Now, our bodies can convert ALA into EPA and DHA, which is great, but the conversion is not very high. It's between 2% to maybe 10% conversion.
I appreciate her honesty, and finally, I think this is the first time that I hear vegans talking about the poor conversion rate. I just find it funny at the start that she says that chia seeds and whatnot are great sources of omega-3, and then goes on to say that the conversion rate is well below 10% and as crappy as 2. I'm going to pop up the study over here. That in my study that I found, it was 3.8 for DHA and 6% for EPA, and that's if people are consuming saturated fat. It's further reduced with the typical vegan diet being high in omega-6 only. It's further reduced that percentage by 50%. So again, thank goodness that they're talking about this on vegan channels. Most are not honest enough to do that. And the link with omega-6 to 3 ratios being out of whack can be linked to violence, inflammation, deviant behaviors, heart disease, and many of the modern diseases. At no time were we ever able to get the omega-6 from oils. We were getting it from animals, guys. So kudos to this channel and to this Dr. Pamela for being honest about the omega-3. And I think that's another reason why there's such a big there's a big amount of cognitive defects and depression and whatnot, early dementia, Alzheimer's, that's seen with the plant-based people. It's weird that everyone focuses on these crappy food surveys trying to link saturated fat to heart disease, and trying to link the red meat to now rectal cancers. These things are all food surveys.
Tend to be good converters. Older men, not so good converters. And even 10% conversion isn't fantastic. So you might want to consider a supplement with DHA and possibly also EPA.
So again, you're supplementing with a whole food diet. Look at the amount of supplementation. We don't need one darn supplementation if we go strictly carnivore. It's just showing the point. I'm not saying everyone needs to go carnivore. I'm not saying we can't implement fruits and vegetables, but let's not fall for this propaganda because they want us to eat these new meat replacements and stuff like that. It's more lucrative to feed us what they were feeding the cows instead of feeding the cows. This fortified junk.
This is one example of a vegan algae-derived DHA. There is now a fortified milk in Canada that contains algae-sourced DHA. So lovely to see fortification happening of omega-3.
I'm right up there with her. At least vegans are getting fortified with the omega-3, because I've actually talked to a vegan friend and I was like, I was kind of like, hey, check this study out. Are you supplementing with omega-3, whatnot? I think, for their own health while they're doing this dangerous vegan diet that I'm highly against because it's so deficient, then yeah, I'm glad they're at least, drinking this fortified stuff. I have somebody who has taken this vegan supplement, but it has basically everything. It has it has tons of omegas. It has all of the vitamins. It has everything. And the vegan started taking it and says that this supplement's awesome. That she feels amazing. She feels so good on this mixology or whatever it's called. But the problem is that you're feeling good because it's a supplement replacing what you're deficient in. But you should be getting all this through food sources. All right.
Next, we're talking about zinc. Now, there are lots of different foods that have zinc. One of them includes pumpkin seeds.
Pumpkin seeds are fantastic, and they are a great source of zinc. Great for snacking. Put them on your oats, put them on your salads. Another good source of zinc can be fortified products. So again, back to our yummy vegan sausages, and this sausage.
Yummy vegan sausages that are whole food and fortified.
One sausage has 54% of your zinc, your daily requirement. But we can get zinc from nuts, seeds, beans, but it is a nutrient where vegans do have to be a bit conscious to make sure.
Okay, look, again, she goes through all of the healthy, all the healthy whole food choices, right? and then says that you need to supplement because most of the vegans are deficient in zinc, which is true, as well as iron.
Using whole foods, like that example of the pumpkin seeds, you're not going to run into a problem of blocking copper absorption when you're choosing whole food sources.
That's
right. And lastly, let's talk about
there's a lot of anti-nutrients in plants that bind up minerals, nutrients, and whatnot. Fiber itself was touted as something that was beneficial because it took cholesterol out of your digestive tract. It lowered the cholesterol that you were absorbing. And we now know that cholesterol is not an issue. Dietary cholesterol is needed. So again, fiber is something that's not absorbed. It's what makes you gassy because the bacteria that are trying to process it make gas. You don't get that issue with animal-based nutrition.
Now, this is something that people talk about a lot. And for me, before I was even vegan or vegetarian, I was low iron, B12 deficient. So let's talk about different sources of iron and whether or not people should supplement.
Yeah, so iron is something that we do tend to hear about. Actually, iron deficiency is quite common, even among omnivores.
Even among people that eat a human-appropriate diet.
Absolutely. Women are at higher risk for iron deficiency than men are. Keep thinking about your beans, your greens, your nuts, your seeds. All of these things are good sources of iron. But if you're having
Or a ribeye.
trouble meeting your needs using just food sources, and really do try to get your iron from those food sources, but if you're finding
Try, just really try and get it. Don't eat it through meat though. But it's a whole food. Let's just try and get it because it's so wholesome. Okay, sorry.
you are struggling, you might want to take an iron supplement just to get your stores back up, and then keep them up with whole foods. Try not to keep going with an iron supplement indefinitely. Just get your stores back up and then stop your supplement and go back to relying on whole foods.
Is there any validity to pairing iron?
She just keeps repeating it. She just said it again, Whole Foods. Do they not realize the irony of titling it Nutrition Basics for Vegans by a dietitian that just talks about how deficient this whole food plant-based diet is, and then talks about all the fortified food and supplementation. Meanwhile, the keto carnivore people are saying eat animal-based nutrition. There's nothing wrong. Animal fat is good. It's the seed oils that is the bad fat. And, there's no need for fortification. Yet, anyways, this plant-based vegan stuff is what is whole food. Soy is not a complete protein. When you talk about complete proteins, you're talking about the amino acid profile, the essential amino acids. Now, soya is the only one considered as a plant complete protein. That's just because it contains all of the essential amino acids, but there's two of them that are extremely low. So you're eating the soy and you're not able to make complete proteins. All animal nutrition is complete proteins. You're unable to get omega-3 a significant amount because of the poor conversion rate, right? That's not an issue. You get all of your essential fats through any of this animal nutrition. We are flesh, and when we eat flesh, it tends to be absorbable. We don't have the same flesh as plants.
With like vitamin C.
Absolutely. So if you want to increase the absorption of your iron, you can have it with vitamin C, and that...
Okay, they talked about vitamin C. Let me talk about vitamin C. Vitamin C, when the body's looking at it, it's very similar to glucose. I believe it uses the same transporter to enter the cell. Therefore, if you have a high carb diet, then there's so much glucose that's on these transporters, you need a lot more vitamin C. But when you're on a low carb diet, the amount of vitamin C that is found in animal nutrition, in fresh meat, in liver, in organs, meats, and I'm sure in a lot of other places that we still haven't tested for. So even vitamin C is covered. You don't get scurvy from even just being carnivore for years. Sean Baker's done it for years and years. There's many carnivores, and there's many cultures like the Maasai, that lived off bone, blood, and milk. So the Inuits, there's many carnivorous cultures that when isolated from modern culture, seem to be immune to all these modern diseases and tooth decay and bone deformities that we're suffering from because of a grain diet, because of a slave diet, in my opinion.
Is so easy to do when you're having whole foods. Like when I make chili, I'll get a lime and I'll squeeze lime onto the top of everyone's chili portion, so I'm getting that vitamin C with the iron-rich lentils and beans in the chili. You make hummus, you put lemon juice in with the chickpeas. It's better if you squeeze.
So don't forget that when you're eating plants and beans and whatnot, you're getting a lot of anti-nutrients. There's oxalates that bind up nutrients. There's tannins, there's inflammatory proteins, not just gluten. There's hormone disruptors, there's phytoestrogens, estrogen mimicking molecules, especially in soy, but other plants.
On at the end, rather than cooking it in, you'll still get the flavor of the lime, but you're damaging some of the vitamin C.
Yeah. We're talking about supplements, but it's always different for each person. So we always recommend that you go see your doctor, get your blood work done, even whether or not you're vegan. Like, people should just have this done anyway. So what I eat isn't necessarily the same thing as what you eat, because our bodies are different.
It is.
Again, really respect this girl's channel. Again, I'm really criticizing veganism. I respect this vegan channel for trying to talk about the deficiencies. I just find that it's a good example of the irony that they're pushing this whole food, plant-based diet, making it look like it's superior in every way to animal nutrition. Yet we need big business. We need supplement stores. We need the government to fortify things when you're on it. Guys, we become dependent on the government. We literally have useful idiots, vegans, that are begging the government to take away the appropriate human food that we've been using and hunting and that. Anyways, it's just ridiculous. This is why I'm outspoken. This is why I'm starting to talk about veganism, because there is an agenda, and the agenda isn't to offer plant-based options. It's really to replace animal nutrition with plant-based replacements. The study's there, and if you think that I'm a conspiracy theorist, well, then you know what? I have nothing to say. You'll see down the road.
It's a great idea to keep on top of every year going and getting your blood work done. Just make sure that everything's functioning really well, and go and see a dietitian. Speak to someone about your nutrition, and just making sure that you're optimizing.
That's right. Don't go do the research like I did, because if you actually do the research yourself, you'll end up where I am, and realizing that there's a lot more to just eating right. This manipulation of the human diet, removal of meat, okay? These high plant-based diets, this vegan approach plays with hormones, lowers testosterone. You need vitamin D3 for testosterone. You need cholesterol for sex hormones. You need saturated fat for sex hormones. Your brain is 60% fat. It's 25% cholesterol. 50% of that 60% fat is saturated. It's the highest amount of omega-3 fats in there. All right, so there's fat is part of every cell. It determines the absorption. It's the permeability membranes. Every membrane is fat. Your whole nervous system, the myelin sheath, it's all saturated fat. Fat. All right, guys. So cows, they eat cellulose, but they don't really, they ingest it, but they don't absorb it. It's the bacteria that eat it. So the bacteria eat the grass and feed the cow 70 to 80% fat, fatty acids. So the cow's a high fat cow. Okay, they're not vegans. Same thing with gorillas. Gorillas are around 70%. Plus the high plant-based quantity that they eat, they literally have to practice carpophagia, which is eating their own shit to pass it for a second cycle. That's how difficult these plant-based nutrients are, even for a adapted animal with a hindgut fermentation process. Then you look at the carnivores, The lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Well, they go for the abdominal cavity. They go for the organs. They go for the fat. And they have a essential fatty acid requirement that the cows don't, because the carnivores cannot produce the fatty acids to sustain themselves. They need to go get fat in their diet. Therefore, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, very similar to the cow and the gorilla, are on a high-fat diet. Most of them averaging about 20% protein, which is very similar to the ketogenic diet, which is very similar with the 70 to 80% fat in the ketogenic diets, very similar to the cow and the carnivore, the gorilla. You see what I'm getting at? Everyone's on a high-fat diet. Why the hell would humans be any different? We're not.
Food that you're eating and any supplements you might need in order to get an individual plan to help you maximize your health.
If you guys want to reach out to Pamela for information,
to help sustain you as long as you can on this slave diet. Now, don't forget, guys, if you start adding one source of animal nutrition, you're eating eggs or you're going vegetarian, everything is fine, because you're getting your omegas through your animal sources of nutrition. You're getting complete proteins. That's how powerful going from vegan to vegetarian is. The vegetarians do have some issues with deficiencies, but this is nowhere near the physical degeneration and the mental degeneration of long-term veganism.
and for advice, her links will be down below. If you want to see some of my stuff for recipes or just general lifestyle in terms of veganism and ethical living, I'll leave all of my links down below as well.
She talked about ethical living. Okay, don't forget that if we were able to pull off this vegan diet and the nutrient basics didn't talk about any supplementation. I mean, guys, the whole thing was about deficiencies, fortification, and supplementation, right? If I was able to get everything through plant nutritions without having to supplement, without any dangers of deficiencies, then of course it would be morally right to stop eating animals. Why would you do that to a sentient being if you could accomplish that naturally through plant sources? But it's obvious here that what I've been saying, what other people have been saying, the vegan diet or a plant-based diet, which they're trying to replace the animal products with that, you see that it is very, very deficient. Therefore, it is unethical to put this on the humans. It's not realistic. Vegans, we see vegans, trying to make cats and dogs be carnivore also. Feeding cats a vegan diet could potentially break the law. And you read underneath, but a vegan veterinarian says he has found no conclusive evidence that cats and dogs fed a well-planned and nutritional vegan diet are less healthy. Yeah, this joker's from Plant-Based News. Yeah, you gotta see Tristan from Primal Edge Health. He does like an amazing imitation of the guy who hosts this Plant-Based News. He's like, hello, I'm Klaus, and I'm so... No, I can't even. Just go to Primal Edge Health and watch his live streams. They're hilarious. Totally inappropriate. It's total disconnection from nature, from the understanding of nature that everything in life is based on death. The dirt, okay, it wants death. It wants the animal's bone, blood meal. It wants the whole animal. It devours. Okay, the soil is a living matrix, very complex. It's alive. Topsoil, healthy. Topsoil can be dead, or it can be alive. So going green and stuff like that. Going green isn't about putting green labels on stuff, guys. It's about replenishing from the ground up. And that's a metaphor, or that's kind of, an expression, from the ground up. But I'm serious. The Green Revolution is from the ground up. And the only way to correct the ground is to incorporate ruminant animals, to go back to nature's ecological cycle, that close relationship between ruminant animals and the grasslands, and the methane cycle and CO2. All of these things, these animals are nutrient amplifiers, guys. They take cellulose. That's not a resource that we compete for. We can't do anything with grass. They take that and they make complete protein. They make essential fats. They make fat soluble and water soluble nutrients. They make that from something. It's like they create food for us from the grass, that we can't do that without them. And then you look and say, well, okay, but the protein from these plants, if we're not using animals anymore because it's unethical, it's incomplete, guys. And soy is the only one that's could be considered complete, but it's full of phytoestrogens. It's screwing up our hormones. This is messed up, man. This is messed up. Whole food requiring fortification, supplementation, and still at risk of deficiency. Totally begging the government, take away our ability to make our own food, to go off grid, give a big finger to the government and say, you know what? I'm buying some land. I'm buying some animals. I'm going to raise them. I'm going to eat them. It's unethical to force this on people. Our job as a species is to produce the best generation. And our deficiencies, okay, our hormonal disruptions are put on generations to come. Our lowered testosterone levels, our lowered fertility rates, our deficient mothers making the next generation. This is serious, serious stuff, guys. And there's a way of feeding the population to make them more docile, to make them, cognitively dulled down, to make them fogged and cloudy. This is done through nutrition, it's done through social media, it's social engineering and whatnot. They want a global system that consolidates all resources. They're going to talk now, the people that created capitalism, that created consumerism, are now talking about minimalism, saying, no, you know what? Be enlightened, okay? Sell all your stuff and live in a tiny little box and don't have any possessions. The same people that told us about consumerism is important are now saying for us to leave everything, because they want us to go into these smart cities. They want us to go where everything will be big business feeding us.